So we are live. So shall we begin, Jessica?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So I think we'll start off with a small monologue which I've prepared. So if there is one thing that that has managed to captivate all of mankind's curiosity, it is space. It is the best of what we are, and it has a certain level of purity to it. So I think we all must have come across a time in life when we dreamed about doing something, with space itself, right from becoming an astronaut to a space scientist. Interestingly enough, we may have been guided to follow a different path for various reasons in the due course of our lives itself. But the curiosity to find out and actually do something with space, it can never be lost. It just lies deep within us. So that is a fire that cannot be put out. So there are a very handful of people who are actually living their dream by putting so much on the line with a single motivation to contribute to the betterment of humanity through space. I think, ladies and gentlemen, from all of us here, from Unbounded to all of you there who still have that curiosity deep within your own self, we bring you the Unbounded webinar with some of the top space minds of the country. So keep that fire burning within you, if I have to say something, because you never know how you may end up contributing to the betterment of humanity itself. So that will eventually happen. So just keep that hint of curiosity. So with that, I think we'll begin the webinar itself. It's time for me to introduce the amazing panel we have. We have four amazing guests here. Let's start off with NP. Hi, NP.
Hi, thanks for having
So
me.
NP, yeah, no, thank you for doing this with us. So if I have to, say something about NP, he's like the know-it-all guy for the startup space segment here. So he's very well known, and if I have to introduce him, he's the CEO at startsearch.co, and he's the associate with he's the co-founder of Dhruva Space, and he also runs a podcast of his own called the New Space India Podcast, and he's the advisory board for the Students for the Exploration and Development of Space, which is an international nonprofit. So that's about NP here. Welcome to the show, NP. Thank you for joining us from Berlin. And we have Rohan up next. He's the CEO of Bellatrix Aerospace. So he's always struck to me as the kind of guy who's very inspirational and very humbling. I always look up to him, and whatever he does is very much inspiring. So that's about Rohan. He's the CEO of Bellatrix, and we have Nikita here, co-founder and CEO at SSERD. I never imagined somebody with such an intention of just taking the outreach part of space to such huge extents and succeeding so much as possible at all. And I think it's absolutely great that you and your organization are doing it. And thank you for doing this with us, Nikita. And we have Siddharth joining in from Gurgaon. So he's an incoming researcher at ESA's GNSS Summer School, and he is also he's kind of like a space advocate. Whenever he can, he does and encourage all about the space activities and everything here as much as possible. And he was the guest speaker at Space Up IST's Consignia, and I think he's dedicated his time to working with space debris, which is one of the most important problems which we are facing. I think so. That's about the panel. You guys can say hi to the entire crowd. Hi.
Hi.
So we have a lot of people. Yeah, so we're hoping for a very good crowd here. Oh, okay, cool. So let's start off with the questions. So first thing which I wanted to ask you guys is that, see, all of us know that space is very, very difficult and it's not so easy to play with or tap with, but you guys have done it. You guys have chosen to, you're not just playing the line or walking the wire. You've driven in and you're actually doing something with it, and you must have sacrificed so much for it. So what I am curious to know about all of you guys is, why have you chosen to do it? Why is it that you said, okay, this is me and I'm going to do it this way? I mean, all of you are very different in one way or the other. One heads a space propulsion company. One is trying to bring in the new space ecosystem here, and he's to create a market space for space. And another guy is an absolute amazing researcher, and Nikita is focused on inculcating young minds about space activities itself. Each of you have chosen your own specific field to contribute towards this entire vast universe that is space. What I want to know is why. I mean, it's an amazing panel here. That is why we've chosen one different from each sector. So thank you so much, and yeah, we'll start off with NP.
Okay, I think maybe I have a very different perspective from maybe my other co-panelists, because I think they are more inspiring than I am, I would say, because I think, I have never, had any dream of being a space explorer or an astronaut or anything like that in my childhood, or even my, views of undergraduate education. I was just basically damn lucky to have friends who were interested in space stuff, and I just got to tag along with them. And somehow, like the bug, got me, and then carried on doing it. So I guess it's just that everybody enters in a different path, and I cannot claim myself to be a child who had a very big space dream or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I would say that's one of the reasons why this field is so encouraging, because it may not be that you just have a childhood dream of space and you're just carrying on in it. But of course, that's a great safe path. But then it also offers opportunities for people who are of all ages and of all backgrounds and of all kind of. You just need to have the drive and the passion to kind of get along, and maybe you can find people who complement you, and then you can carry on further from there.
Amazing, NP. Can we move to Rohan? Rohan, your take on question.
First of all, thank you, Nitish, for having me.
Thank you for joining.
I'll just echo what NP said, but on a personal level, I grew up in Uti. It's a hill station, and I call myself a little closer to the stars than rest of the people in the country. Good thing about that place is, see, the night sky is pretty clear and pretty dark. So being an amateur astronomer, so I always thought I belonged to the skies, right? As you grow up, you mature and you kind of want to see what you want to do. But for me, it's always been space, and that's the driving force. And also it's philosophical. See, if you look Earth from Saturn, Carl Sagan's famous image, it's just a pale blue dot, right? And imagine there we are 8 billion people. And there's lots left to explore outside. And it is small steps which we take collectively as species, which will enable us to set foot higher. So I'm doing my part, and I thought that's my destiny to do, and that's why space.
Absolutely amazing. I have to tell you that you've started off very quickly. I mean, who would want to do so much at such a young age, and who has the potential to do something like that? I think you are absolutely an inspiration, and you are actually making an impact. I mean, in the mindset of youngsters, at least like me. So let's quickly switch to Nikita. So interesting. What is your take on why you are doing this?
Again, it's like I mean, I didn't think that I would be into this field, but I had this interest in flying objects. That's it. That has brought me so far with a lot of twists and turns, is what I could say. All the wish I had was to become a pilot. That led me, have more interest into pilots and astronauts and those things. And I always say this: I choose not to become today because my height is not sufficient. So that's when I took the decision. Okay, let me not become pilot, but let me learn about aeroplanes and stuff. And that's when I choose to study aeronautics. And luckily, I got into a university which is providing both aeronautical and space. And that's when I got to explore more about space. So it is space. And then, yeah, I came across a lot of my friends and seniors and juniors who actually didn't know what they were studying staying in this field. They actually thought that they would learn about stars and planets by doing aeronautical engineering. So there was a lot of gap between what they wanted to do and what they were doing. So that's where I and a few of my friends thought, okay, let's do something for this problem. Let's start helping students by guiding them, or by sharing knowledge about what exactly is space at the very younger age where they start dreaming about it.
Nikita, you're not audible. I think it's a bit of a lag here. Yeah, Nikita, are you back?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so there is where we thought we should help students by sharing more knowledge, and then yeah, that's where we are now teaching about space for students and for everyone.
Interesting. I mean, I have to say that what you are doing is completely, it is very much giving, and it's in no way selfish at all when it comes to what people are aiming at. and willing to do, especially at this time of where we are actually right now. So let's quickly move to Siddharth. Siddharth, your opinion. I mean, I think you represent most of the student community here. You can speak on my behalf as well, because I would like to know what your opinion or your take on how we use this space and why you've decided to dive in and why you want to do what you are doing right now.
First of all, thank you, Nitish, for inviting me into this discussion. It's wonderful and it's enlightening to be a part of this discussion. I mean, I can look up to all of the people that are here and can take a piece of advice or two from each and every one of them. For me, I actually fashion myself someone who calls himself as an optimistic nihilist, which means that even though I know that in the grand scheme of this whole universe, we don't make much sense, but at that same moment, it's also a liberation in itself that we get to make choice for ourselves. And through one way or the other, the only thing that could actually make sense to me was space. And I have always tried to shuffle between these things. Like I tried my hand in propulsions, I tried my hand in space debris. Now I'm trying my hand in satellite navigations. On and on there, on and on there. And the whole aim for me here was to actually grow, to push the human civilization as far as I could and make my mark in the history by putting a piece of myself there. So in order to answer your question as to what motivates me, well, what motivates me exactly is the fact that we are still on Earth, is that we should have been to other places, and Earth stands as the single most point of failure of us as a community, and we need to be working hard to disprove that fact and move out of this and settle somewhere else. So that's what motivates me actually.
Amazing. I think that is what indeed motivates all of us here, that deep driven curiosity which is within us. So I think thank you so much for the introduction part. It was really amazing to know why you actually chose to do what you're doing right now. So let's dive deep within and know what each people's specialities and what they're trying to do right now with the space sector. So and from the moment I know you, I mean, I have always been looking up to you. And what one important trait which I've always observed in you is that you network amazingly well from where you started to where you are right now. And considering the time span and how much impact you have on the industry itself, I think you network amazingly well. So and I think that must have somehow instilled this concept of creating an actual proper new space sector within the country itself. So address that part. Why do you think you took it upon yourself to create a proper ecosystem in India, space startup ecosystem in India, and you are doing it? So I think that is actually amazing that you're actually able to do just what you've been dreaming about or imagining. So why is it that you have that passion within you, to create a proper new space system? And chime in a bit more about networking and stuff, how important it is and all.
Yeah, I think, for example, I think the first time I met Rohan was in 2012 or something. And, we were also starting up our company. Rohan was also having ideas and he was going around trying to raise money for his ideas and so on. So when you have these set of bunch of people who are trying to, work around the same industry and you're starting something, it's kind of very important that you band together so that you can help each other out. The other bit is, of course, that once you have gathered some critical mass, one, you will have that capacity to maybe inspire others or even have others join this, and at the same time, you can also influence policymakers and government to make changes if you go as a group together. Because let's say I go as a person by myself, I have not really so much value because my value is only about how much I carry in myself, as well as maybe how much money my company is doing, and that's about it, right? But then if I have all five of you on this panel together, and we have each of our companies representing some ideas, and we say this is what industry needs to represent together, then maybe people who are looking at enabling changes, they will give us a better ear to our suggestions. And that way, we can move together. And it's the same for also other things. For example, let's say, we want to have a new set of investors. So, Rohan has also seen how difficult it has been in India to raise money, for example, right? And, in 2012 or between 2012 and 2015 or 16, I don't think so there was a single venture capitalist in India who was really interested in even looking at business plans of space companies. Most of them were like, okay, this is not even a sector which is taken off. So, that has matured, and today you see almost 15 or 20 VC firms trying to participate in this whole of the space industry. So, it all depends on, so all these things come together at a certain point of time. And those kind of come together when, people band together and they say, this is indeed an industry which is kind of creating confidence for both investment policy changes, and it is creating jobs, it's creating new products and so on, right? So the best parallel here is actually, if you look at what happened in the IT industry in India. If you have a look, up to 90s, there was almost nothing, and then 90s, things started to move. And today you see NASSCOM as one big umbrella organization that is connecting so many IT companies at the same time, and they have a huge voice as an industry together, and they kind of support each other. They have, employees moving between companies there. There's a lot of revenues and taxes being generated out of it. And, government listens to all their voices. Whoever is NASSCOM puts out a report and then creates panels, and government listens to it and makes changes. So ultimately, these are like small steps, and that's where we saw, because, in 2012 or 2013, all this started. So maybe, it takes some time for all of this to mature and critical mass. So then we had 2 or 3 companies who were starting up. Today we have like 25 companies over 10 years time. So maybe in 10 years we will have 100 companies, right? So that's how, things mature, and that's how we should hope that things will mature.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for that, NP. I think all of us here can vouch for, how much the points which NP is, raised up made sense now that the new space sector is slowly booming with respect to the startup funding and everything. And in terms of the number of startups as well, we've seen a steady growth in the last 4 to 5 years or so. So I think Rohan and Nikita, can you guys vouch in and say how this sector is moving right now and how it has helped you? Have you seen any sort of changes in the new space sector itself? And, is it a positive trajectory? And what kind of opportunities do you think you've received for your company with the advent of the emerging new space sector? I think we'll start off with Nikita, because, it's a very different standpoint where it's completely an outreach-based organization and you are an NPO. So which means that even if venture capitalists would want to, look at investing in space companies, they wouldn't consider NPOs because there is no sort of like back-end revenue for them to get back. So in terms of, so Nikita, talk us through in terms of how this new space sector has opened up a variety of opportunities for you. I mean, if you have cases of funding and VCs helping you, you might as well mention that. But otherwise, how do you think about this entire new space sector here?
New space, I mean, like if I have to say about space itself, here Indian students are very much interested into space because of ISRO. They follow what ISRO does. They follow what the whole global space organizations do, and they're motivated with those things. Now with the set of new space startups that are doing, they're even more interested. So there must be someone to probably help them and let them explore more. That is what we do. Now, coming to the question that you asked, if VCs would be helpful or would they support for a NPO, again, I don't think so. There is any investments or stocks that are made for an NPO. But then there is another sector called as CSR, social corporate social responsibility. So the companies which are really doing great, if they want to support someone, they support NPOs like or NGOs. Probably what we are looking at is all the space startups to come join hands with us and help us out in reaching out to more students. Yeah. Otherwise, if an organization which is into space education is also a startup, probably investors would be interested if the ideas or the business models are good. They would be interested, is what I think.
Absolutely amazing. So I think Siddharth could, continue from here on a student perspective as to how, you think the new space sector has helped you in some way, because you've been associated with Pixel as well, if I'm not wrong. So if you can talk on that, Rohan, we'll get back to you on that because I have another follow-up question with you. So we'll continue with that as well. So for now, Siddharth, can you please address that part?
Yeah, so actually speaking this, it's not only as something that I've been observing in India. This is something that I've observed all across the globe. It's something that has actually interpreted in different ways in India. What has happened is, like, around in 60s or 70s, the whole space sector used to be a very centralized version where government had the monopoly over launching satellites, launching missions. But as space sector started to diversify, as the new players started emerging in the market, it became really, really decentralized. So even now, the small satellites, the nano satellites, the Earth observation, even some remote sensing work, now it's trickling down to smaller startups. So which plays a really important role because it gives a lot of ground, it gives a lot of space for new companies, small companies to pop in and actually take these responsibilities from the government, which can now actually take out big, a big buyout. They can actually give on big stakes to companies like, for example, Boeing, for example, to SpaceX. So that it's always better that government is always a bad investor. Government, so as more and more players come into this market, as more and more things diversify, it increases the competition here, which increases the level of the quality of the output that we are getting here. Also, to say that the fact is, the diversification has played one more important role, is that now the university degrees here are slowly becoming redundant because there is a no out in the market. There's a lookout in the market for skill based talent. So even if you are someone who's from 10th standard, or you're someone from a 12th standard, but you have the required skill sets, you really don't need to go to a university now to fetch a BTech degree, right? Because of the framework of the education system that we have in India or all across the world, it's quite outdated to what's the demand right now in the space sector. For example, you really don't need to have an education at this certain level or that certain level, or have a PhD per se. But that being said, what the diversification of space sector has done specifically in India is highlighted the fact is that skills are more important than degrees, especially in the Indian student community, which suffers from a lot of parental and societal pressure to push and get a good CGPA for that matter.
Exactly. I think we have, all youngsters here who are listening to this, we have to take into consideration that it's not just the marks, but the other skills also, which play a very important role, especially with opportunities that are developing in the space sector and which are to develop very soon. So I think he's spoken very well about the advent of the new space scenario in terms of how it's going to affect the student's life. So we'll hold on that and we'll quickly move to Rohan here. Rohan, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, cool. So, first question: what do you think about this? How do you think the advent of new space sector has helped your company in some way, and what kind of trajectory are you looking at? Second question. Okay, you finish that, and we'll get back to that because I have a follow-up question on that for your answer. Yeah, go ahead.
See, as NP said, I got into this pretty early when I was 19. So when I was in my first year of engineering. Of course, ISRO, you see global space agencies as your inspiration. But for people who have passion, who wants to do something quickly, who doesn't have patience, right? So that was the question which was I was pondering into. So we decided, let us put our own platform where we can do things which we want. But there comes the problem. Where is the money? Space is a sinkhole. Anything you want to develop, it takes a lot of money, right? So then we decided we'll build a model like this where we start a company, and what gives us pleasure is doing research. So let us have a business angle to it so that research also continues to happen. And one field which I personally was good at is propulsion. So we started looking into it. And then, of course, got in touch with NP, and he's been my personal mentor and like a brother since then. But again, to go deeper into your question, since 2012, things are not the same. Every year, things changed. First, people didn't take you seriously, even in ISRO. When you said I'm doing propulsion systems, they don't take it seriously it's not I'm blaming them, because they know how difficult it is to make something. A student out of nowhere can't come and tell we are doing something like this, right? So then you have to find money, you have to find people who are willing to give you money when you're a student. So that was a big experience for us. So you have to get that. After getting that, you have to prove what you actually said works, and that didn't happen at the speculated or stipulated time. And once that happened, then you go back to ISRO, and then they believe, yes, something like this is possible. Then their mindset changes. And then there are people who are actually looking at new space activities in India. I get emails all over the world. They go through NP's blog and see interesting things. They write back. And then you see ISRO's mindset changing. So they see that it is not something which ISRO alone can do. There are people coming from outside who have the capability to do something. So we have to think something farther. Okay. So there's this big mindset change happening. And it took us 4 to 5 years to secure an investment to reach where we are, and it has been a very learning experience. I wouldn't say that for companies which come now, because I'm happy to say what we have done by creating this noise has actually helped, as NP said, other companies come and look at opportunities here.
So you've sort of like opened up the floodgate, which again results in more and more exponential
No,
growth.
I would say first it was Dhruva Space,
Mhm.
then came, and then NP's own contribution through New Space India, and then there was Astrom and Bellatrix,
Mhm.
and then Team Indus.
Okay.
So let's all the four share credit for this.
Right. So that is like exactly. I mean, you rightly pointed out the growth exactly in terms of the chronological timeline itself. So I think I have a follow-up question on that. So you say that it's been difficult for you for the first 4 or 5 years until you got your first breakthrough with funding, and then you had to. You were also mentioning about people not taking startups and ideas like this very seriously by then. So it must have been very, very difficult for you when you started right out, and you were 19 when you actually managed to start up Electrics, if I'm not wrong. So I think that is one of the highlights webinar that I wanted to discuss here. That how did you begin? I mean, I am 20 right now, and I literally gasp when I look at you guys. So it's amazing how much you've done. I mean, it takes courage, and that is why I think you are an amazing inspiration for people like me. So tell us and talk us through how you started, how you began, and how did you even think and learn about VC funding, money? How do you manage all the other stuff around while managing your academics as well? So how did all that happen to you?
See, it's not been an easy journey. Point number one. Point number two, there are people to help you. Bellatrix has been blessed by great people who came forward to help. Okay. So you have to develop networking capabilities. And if you want to do something in space, never forget perseverance is the key. So you will fail 100 times, but you have to know you have to stick on. So then only it will succeed. So that's something which we learned very early on. So we started building amateur rockets, blowing ourselves up, setting ourselves on fire, having a plastic surgery done. So, you've actually been through, you also know the pain which it goes to building stuff. So that made people like me stick on. You have to give credit to team, my co-founding team. They stuck with me through thick and thin, and they're still there, right? So it's not just I alone couldn't do it. And there are people like NP and Abhishek who all came forward at the relevant time to offer support, tell what it is. And you meet people who are in industry who can tell you not necessarily space, but who can explain you what is VC funding, how does it work, what is a business. See, basically we are researchers, and scientists make bad entrepreneurs. So if you want to manage both, it's not something you learn from somebody, it is experience, and every day you learn. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely amazing, Rohan. I think, starting off with how difficult your journey was, starting right from a young age. I think Nikita also shares a very similar story. She started off SSCRT when she was, in her third year, if I'm not wrong. Yes, Nikita? So how has it been? How has it been for you? And do you concur with Rohan? And if you have any other points to add on to this as well?
Yeah, it's again inspiring to always hear from Rohan. Like it's like I mean, I think it's just like what Rohan said. You need to have the thought that what you want to achieve in your mind, and if you have that thought in your mind, you actually don't consider about your age. You actually don't look at your age, and you just keep on going to achieve what you thought of. So yeah, that's what happened with us. I was in third year, and we started teaching with the students who were there around, and then yeah.
So I think much of what you're doing comes from actually your mother, who is also a teacher. So it's right there in your blood, and you're actually continuing it.
Kind of. I think I can say that she's been teacher, and I was actually looking through the photos, and I found found a photo where I was teaching when I was in my first grade, and I also used to go and teach in the classes when I was in high school. If there's any teacher absent, I used to go and take classes, and you'll not believe I used to teach about planets only. Now, if I think at that day, I didn't know that I would do something similar after I grew up. So yeah.
I think there's an important lesson for all of us to take from here, that making money and building a fortune is not the only way to live. I think it's also a way to live, but what means more is actually when you find a way to actually give back how much you've learned. I think you're doing that perfectly, and you've struck your rhythm. So I think we'll quickly revert back to NP with another question, but before that, I have another question to Siddharth here. Okay, before I ask that question, I think my professor is actually watching this stream, and he had asked a question. So he's Dr. Nataraja Pillai. And, Siddharth, he is like the go-to guy for, research if you are in a place. So he emphasizes so much on research, and I think I'll give a shout out to him and score some brownie points here. Cool. So what sir is asking is, you spoke about space debris and mitigating all that. So he has a question for you. Give me 1 minute. Yeah, he says more than 100 million small debris of less than 10 centimeters, size is orbiting around the Earth, as quoted by Astronautica in 2014, which is a journal. So, you work with multi constellations and, the GNSS kind of things. So how do you think, I mean, firstly, do you have any experience dealing with such kind of problems? And have you thought of any solutions? That was his question. And the startups where you work, do they deal with such kind of problems? If at all you have, please provide some more information. So I think that's his question. So if you can address that part before we, move to NP with another question.
Yeah, so actually, I actually gave the talk at the Indian Institute of Space Technology on the similar topic on space debris. It is something that I was really passionate about. I'm still really passionate about it. Currently, I'm involved with my studies, so I'm not being able to give it the amount of thought that it actually needs to be given. But the center of its research lies in Europe. And every year I attend a conference called the Workshop for Space Debris, which happens in CNES in Paris. And every year there's always people coming up with new research, with new techniques to manage the threat of space debris. Now, the thing is, I'm not working for any startup. I'm not aware of any startup in India who's actually working on this problem right now. There are some startups like ClearSpace, I think in Switzerland, and some startups in UK which are working on this problem. There are few startups, I think, in France as well. But in India currently, there is no startup ecosystem that's dealing with the threat of space debris. Secondly, it's a highly complex problem. It's a multi-layered problem, because it's just not that there are the waste junk pieces which are roaming around in space that you have to just track them and deorbit them and bring it to the ground. The problem with them is they are moving very fast. Since they have escaped the Earth's orbit, they're traveling around 7 to 8 kilometers per second, and even something as small as a size of a pen can strike you with the force of a truck moving at 60 miles per hour. So which can do extreme damages to our satellites, which have highly sensitive equipments. Now, the thing is, it's quite unfortunate that in countries like India, there haven't been any startup or any proper research that's been going on in this area. That being said, there's still ray of hope, especially from the United States and Europe, where researchers have been done. I think there's a company called ELSA-D, which also have prepared a model for deorbiting these systems. Japan also launched a system, I think, around in 2016 or 17, but it failed. It itself became a debris instead of bringing down the debris, because it's a highly complex problem. People don't really understand that there's a lot of debris there in space, and there's something called Tesla syndrome. So what happens is, if there is one piece of debris in space, it strikes with another piece and divides itself into four. Those four become 16, 16 becomes 64, 64 becomes 120. And it starts on multiplying itself. And in a year, it's in millions. And this is just with one debris. Now you can imagine how much of junk that we have been putting in the space. We have been using space as an infinite resource, which it is not. Right? We rarely have a capability of moving out from our low Earth orbit, which we are constantly crowding throughout the time. Now, if we really need to move out of low Earth orbit, it's very important to first clear it so that we don't encounter accidents through our way to Mars or through our way to other planets in the universe. I really hope there are some startups in India that start working on it, because the research in India it's at very basic level. We were funded by Lockheed Martin. I guess in my second year, we were funded by Lockheed Martin. They funded us around 1 million Indian rupee to actually develop a prototype. We developed the prototype. We kind of got a patent for it. But we are currently working on this idea, but I can't disclose much detail about it because we are under an NDA. But this is something that we're really working on right now. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's another important scientific problem with respect to space that all of us, must take into account and consideration. And, the emphasis that has been given right now towards that is very, very minimal considering the magnitude of the threat that it possesses, to all of the space sector here itself. So amazing point. NP, are you here? Because I'm not able to see you. Hello, NP? Guys, can any of you, see NP and hear?
NP, am I audible? Are you there?
Okay, give me 1 minute. Okay, I think he's back now. NP, you there? Yeah, can you?
Yeah, I'm here. You had to
Okay, cool.
kind of muted. Yeah.
Okay, no problem at all. So, part of, we'll revert back to the question to you, NP, right now. But before that, I'd like to say that part of what we do at Unbounded here is to actually focus on the wisdom that people of your caliber have to offer, all of you. So we basically look at experiences, what they've done and everything. So, knowledge is not just in the facts, but it's the simplification of facts that actually help, with some sort of wisdom and some sort of experience. So, basing my question on that part, we here at Unbounded, we believe in Steve Jobs' quote. He said that you cannot connect the dots looking forward, right? So, my question to NP here, it's going to be a bit funny, so no offense also. So when we spoke last time, you said you had no direction for the most part of your life, but you still ended up here. Talk us through that. So so this question will be reverted to everybody here, but let's start off with NP.
Right. So, firstly, I would like to congratulate you on having your professor watch your live stream and ask questions.
Oh.
I think this is the first time in my life I have seen somebody who's in India who has inspired their professor to watch their live stream on YouTube on a Sunday afternoon to ask a question. And also congratulations to your professor who has made the effort to take his time out in coming and viewing this and also asking the question. So that's being said apart. Ultimately, I think at the end of the day, as Rohan also pointed out about team members and how you can band with others. The thing is, not everybody has original ideas. And not everybody has, can be a researcher or can be an entrepreneur or can be, leading a non-profit organization or can be whatever XYZ, right? So some people come with original ideas, some people believe in original ideas, and some people want to back them, right? So I would say, I am kind of a person I may have come to a conclusion that somehow I don't get these original ideas by myself, but I try to tend to believe in some others' ideas. And if I see like potential in them, I've been supporting them for quite a long time. So, and that's been the case with me with starting from my years of education to like, what I am doing now. So even with Sat Search, my company now, the original idea came from my co-founder, Karthik. And, we believed in that idea, and we have been supporting that for a long time now. Right. So I think, people should not be disappointed if they don't come up with any such, original ideas or so on. But essentially, if they keep their eyes and ears open and look at opportunities, maybe they will have somebody, who has those ideas, and they can contribute in their own ways to it. So I think that's where, ultimately hope will kind of come. And I guess if you, as you persist and you kind of persevere, I'm sure that there's lots of opportunities that will come up. Because, the field is always getting kind of greener and greener by the day, right? So maybe, you had 2 companies or 3 companies where you could work with 5 years ago, and you had they were also very young companies. They didn't have any much money or revenues with them. But today you have a set of, 20 companies that have hired more than, maybe 500 people in all already in the last 3-4 years, right? So therefore, the opportunity is always kind of multiplying. And, it also goes along with the confidence level and also experience. So maybe some people, believe that they want to get an industry experience first before they start up their own idea, or they, they just want to stay in research, for example, right? So it all, I guess, believes in what you are comfortable with, and kind of what you want to do at the end. But at the end of the day, you just need to keep experimenting and keep, identifying what are kind of your strengths and weaknesses, and play to your strengths and kind of improve your weaknesses, and have. So the way you can make up that is to have other collaborators and other, peers and partners to enable all of that.
So I think NP makes an amazing point here. So the thing that all of us have to realize here is that originality doesn't come in terms of your mind alone. It's not just your ideas, but it could also come in terms of the traits you possess, your ability to learn and adapt quickly to whatever scenario you've been presented to. I think that's what NP has done very well here. Quoting his example with respect to SatSearch.co, where he is right now the COO, and the company is doing amazingly well. So I think that is a lesson for all of us here to understand that it is okay to go through with whatever you've been doing right now, and just keep doing it, and it'll eventually end up connecting. I think Rohan and Nikita can back me on this. So Rohan, let's jump to you. So how has this thought process, I mean, first of all, you must have self-doubted yourself. I am absolutely certain about that, at least at some point in time, even if it's a bit too much for me to say. So, but then you managed to somehow, crawl through all that and get to where you are right now, and not knowing how it's all going to end up and how it's going to go. So, how did you actually take it? How did you, perceive this idea of yours before? So, if you can answer it, jobs is what it'll be amazing.
Yeah, Nitish, I get your question. Space industry, if you want to do something in space, you have to understand that you require a lot of capital, point number 1. And you also want to see which technology you're working on. You should think it as a game of chess, right? I can't be doing rockets and satellites at the same time. If you say I'm building a rocket itself is 1 million technologies put together, right? So you exactly have to figure out what you're doing and how the industry is. For example, if you want to work on space debris, as Siddharth said, it is a major task in itself. It is not a simple technology to work on. Many other technologies come together. So you have to create an ecosystem and to provide a solution in space. And space is a field where you necessarily need not be an aeronautical or aerospace engineer to, work on. You can be a computer guy, you can be a mechanical engineer, you can be a civil engineer. So again, coming to company perspective, what technologies they've developed, we have to come together to form one given solution, and you have to see if that solution is actually solving the problem. And with that belief, I am continuing, and of course, for the products which we develop, we are getting good, feedbacks and responses.
Absolutely amazing. So that is a positive backing from Rohan there. So we'll move quickly to Nikita. So Nikita, when we spoke last time for the Unbounded podcast, I remember you telling me, you had to do things in order to get certificates. People run, in search of opportunities like that when they're in their college or something of that sort. So which essentially means that you yourself did not know or was not aware of where you are going to go, where you're headed. But it's just that belief that, okay, I have to do this and it'll end up, I'll end up somewhere else and it's going to open up some more opportunities for me. So you had that process. So from where you've begun right there to where you are right now, if you can talk us through with respect to this question as to how it all ended up
Yeah.
connecting.
Yeah, for all our student community, right? And in fact, the college or the university makes it compulsory that they must have these many certificates, or must have. It's just to build their CVs or resumes. We all as a student go behind those programs just for the certificates, and in fact most of the time we don't even concentrate for the program or for the seminars that we would have went, for the conference that we would have gone. So that's where most of my journey began into. So I just looked into a conference Facebook page, and then I thought, let me just go and explore how the things go. And then I got to meet so many people. In fact, that I can say that's the first space family that I met. That's how I was introduced to all these big people whom we have here: NP, Rohan, many more. So it's like stage by stage, but that's when you get to meet people and exchange the ideas, explore what they are doing, what others are doing, and also see what best you could do in the coming days. And it's all of building contacts and learning something new, and then go on to achieve what you want to. That has been my journey. Keeping one more factor in mind, as NP was telling, he just gives. He's given a lot of support for so many organizations. Even sometimes he would have he had given few words for us also, telling, okay, you're doing this, you must do this. So it's always good that someone supports us. And at the same time, if there is anything that we can give, we need to keep giving. Only then you can have someone to support you in the future, is what I think.
Just to add
Absolutely
to,
amazing. Yeah.
sorry
Go
to
ahead, Rohan.
interrupt,
Yeah,
Nitish.
no problem.
Just to
Go
add
ahead.
to what Nikita was saying, space industry, you should not see it as bounded to one country. Space is global, and if you are doing something in space, please ensure it is on par with what advanced countries are doing. So that is a challenge which
Exactly.
we have in India, and that's what NP is also trying to tell. If you want to do something, it has to be globally competitive.
True.
Absolutely amazing points here. If I have to summarize what both of them had said, you have to stay with the trend. And Nikita's point basically was that, see, no matter how much you achieve, it is always going to feel empty if you're not be able to, give back to others. So I think that's the lessons which we can actually, take it from that point. I think Siddharth will also have a similar sort of opinion for this question as to how it all ended up, working out for him. Siddharth, if you can add on to this.
So, as Nitish, going back to your point, I don't think it's all ended up out working out for me. I mean, for me, something that actually I think Rohan might be aware of, Dr. Ogar Govain. So he was my personal mentor, and I see up to him as almost as a father figure to me. And we are constantly in contact with each other. And he's someone with a lot of wisdom. And he said this thing to me that I actually remember in my second year when I was running all around the places. When he said this to me, Siddharth, keep on hitting the darts. Something or the other would land on the board. Don't try to stick to one thing in your early stage when you're actually going out there. Don't get passionate about one thing so much that it actually blinds you of all other things. It's very important that you try your hand in everything, and then what suits your caliber the best, you choose that field, and then you move out and run around with it. You move out with it, you run along with it, but you need to experiment at the initial stage. So the first thing that I really want to emphasize on, especially for the younger generation that is now studying in colleges, is you need to move out your classrooms and experiment a bit. even though, like, I understand that your subjects, your GPA, your exams, I mean, it takes a lot of toll into your mind, but it's very important that if you really want to discover on what your real interest area is and what you really want to work on, because space, it's not something which is binary. It's not 0 1. There are a lot of domains inside space as well, right? You have remote sensing, you have satellite navigations, you have space debris, you have propulsions, you have a lot of stuff to do. So it's very important that initially you figure out what you want to do by experimenting in a lot of stuff. Once you figure that out, then you can actually build up upon it, firstly. And secondly, what I really want to focus on here is what I see in a lot of professionals that are now popping out, coming out, especially from India, that there is a huge skill gap, right? What is being taught in the classroom and what is actually required in the industry, there's a huge skill gap in between that. Uh, so they're not basically industry ready. They're not basically someone who could be offered job as it is. They can't fill up the position as it is. They require certain amount of training. So what I would like to say them is to, you need to learn how to balance your studies as well as have this time to work on your skills as well, because your GPA and your graduation, that's important, but what's more important is that you have relevant skill sets for the industry as well. You can only be employed at someone's company if you fulfill a certain amount of skill that is required for their job. That's what a job is. He wants you to do X, you want to do the, if you know how to do the X, you will get that job, right? It doesn't really matter what your background is. So what I want them to really focus on, a point number first, experiment a lot of things. Secondly, when they find their niche, try to develop onto it and learn skills which are not necessarily taught in the universities as well. Don't run behind compliments, don't run behind certificates, or that you want to win this competition or that competition. It's very important that you stay humble and try to learn in your initial years. And once you have learned a certain amount of stuff, you'll definitely get all the accolades that you want. But it's all about keeping your head and working.
Absolutely amazing, Siddharth. So I think if I were to summarize what you basically said from a student's point of view, keep an open mind, develop skills and not just the marks, and stay grounded and required, and also stay positive that you will eventually get to where you are aiming at.
Keep experimenting. That's very
yeah,
important.
and keep experimenting. So you have to keep an open mind towards what life has to offer at some point, because you never know. So I think that's an amazing statement there. So I think we have one final question, which we can actually round up to all the panelists here. So let me start off with Siddharth itself, because I am curious. So before that, I will say this one point. See, one of the main reasons why I started Unbounded is my ultimate goal is to become a space entrepreneur, much like what you guys have been doing. So I actually wanted to know what it means to be, the kind of person that you guys are. I wanted to know the extent of my dreams, and I wanted to know what it really took for you guys, and I wanted to basically tap out of all the wisdom which you guys had to offer. So because when I start to do my thing, then I would be starting off at a much better place. So that was the whole intention here. So I think it's very important for us to follow our passion and always keep trying to do something or the other with respect to what you are willing to achieve or what you want to achieve in the future. I think I can quote here with an example. So when I had this interest of listening to podcasts and everything, I knew that, okay, so I love doing this, so why not try doing this itself? That's a thought that came randomly at one evening when I was so much tired after my class. So the moment I did that, I eventually ended up messaging a few people like Rohan, Nikita, who are right in my contacts, and they did not know me personally at all much before, but they eventually ended up saying yes. So now that meant that I had to come up with an idea and I had to prepare myself to do this podcast. So I literally forced myself into this, and I ended up meeting the director of French Space Agency, and meeting NP, and meeting you guys, and it has been a certain eye opener. And this, I consider this as one major step in my life itself, simply because I chose to bring out a random thought which I had in the evening after a tiring day. So never underestimate the power of those kind of thoughts. So that is what I wanted to say. So that's the whole philosophy, I think, which has been for the talk. So having said that, I can also say that I admire all of you guys. I mean, I've said that to you in person, and I've said that to you here as well. So, but out of curiosity, I mean, most people look up to you here in India who's looking into developing their career in space industry here. especially the startup segment. Almost everybody look up to you guys. So that's all common. So let's dive a bit in here and try to, I actually want to know how you think about yourselves. So how a space entrepreneur perceives another space entrepreneur itself, and you guys have to, I'm interested in knowing what you think about the others and what you are actually learning from them and everything. So it's going to be a fun task. So let's start off with Nikita. So you can choose everybody and say, how you perceive them and, what you've learned from them and what is your whole idea about them.
For a person like me, I come from a background where none of my family members are into entrepreneurship, right? So the term entrepreneurship itself is something new for me. And luckily or unluckily or fortunately, unfortunately, I ended up doing something called a social entrepreneurship, which I myself didn't know that it is called entrepreneurship. That's how in my final year I had a subject called as entrepreneurship, so I'm going through the lessons and everything. It's like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm doing, yeah. So am I an entrepreneur? That's how I realized what I am, right? So that's been my journey, and from then is when I had to learn more about entrepreneurship. So reading more stories and talking to people who are actually in the field and getting to know more how they work on. In fact, NP's podcasts have been helping me so much to understand, learn more about other startups that are there, because he directly speaks to the founders. In fact, your podcasts, so these are the things which helps us to learn from a person who's already into the field. And of course, yeah, learning is something that has happened. And I really, being an entrepreneur and reading what, or knowing what they are doing, because all of us are on the same boat. We have similar kind of problems, but the topics would be different. So we all know, when we are an entrepreneur, we know what they're going through, what we are going through. So it's the kind of relationship that we build in. At that moment, we feel like we all are brothers and sisters, because we know what we are going through. And yeah, that's what I can say about all this. Yeah.
Thank you, Nikita, for coming out with such an answer. But I have to be honest, I think you kind of played it a bit safe there. So I'll try to make life a bit more difficult for Rohan here. Rohan, what do you think about NP and Nikita and Siddharth in person? You can't give a generic answer here.
See, I've
And
been.
what is it that you learned? Yeah.
See, I'm a learner. That's what Bellatrix is, and the culture which we have in Bellatrix is every day you learn, and you're not an expert. You don't know anything. And we are the people who go to ISRO for every reviews and get scoldings and come back, right? So it's not easy. So, but you learn from people. So as you said, the space industry is an ocean. You don't know what is happening elsewhere. It's not just technology, it is policy, everything. So every people is an inspiration here. And if you look at one common thing which everyone shares, is every person who's in space is humble and down to earth.
True.
If not for, and
Very true.
see, we are all first generation entrepreneurs. I come from a family of academics. And looking at people, what inspires is, it's you're not alone in the game, right?
Yes.
You're not going to fade out. If you started this, say, in early 2000, it is not possible. So you be thankful you're at the right time to do the job. And also what inspires is, you're among the first few, like the Gemini astronauts, what we call the Mercury astronauts. So they were the first batch of astronauts, right? So similarly in India, we are all, I'm inspired to say that we all belong and get inspired that we are the first ones to actually create this movement here. Yeah, and coming to all of you in person to answer that, everybody is an inspiration. So I don't know Siddharth in person, but I've heard his talk at IIST. So what I can comment is he's a very passionate person, and Nikita is like a family. I can't say anything further. NP is an elder brother, and you, I call you Thambi, right?
Yeah, you do.
So, yeah, that's how it is.
Okay, cool. So
space unites,
again,
right?
it's absolutely amazing.
You should remember Carl Sagan here. Don't fight. If you are outside Earth, there's no other galaxy you'll find somebody similar to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rohan. That I think that is a better answer. I think it is absolutely amazing how diplomatic you guys can get. Uh, no offense, but yeah, it's like it's just like a friend to friend talk. I just have to say that. So NP, what are your thoughts? How do you actually learn? How much do you learn from these people who are around you, and how do you actually perceive them? Okay, NP, are you there?
Sorry, I'm here. I had muted myself. Sorry. Basically, I said, I have a geographical difference because I, of course, don't live in Bangalore. I come and go every 3 months or so on. But then, like I am, of course, connected to all these guys and see how they can progress. But the good thing is, I can be kind of very honest about everything in India because I don't really have any customers there. So I can be the outspoken guy who kind of can play the bad cop of trying to hold the mirror to some people to change a lot of status quo because I am based in Europe and I don't really have any customers, right? But then that's the challenge I think a lot of these people have in there, because unless and until you somebody needs to play the good cop and somebody needs to play the bad cop, for the stuff to move further down. As far as like entrepreneurship is itself concerned, I think from my own company, it's like we have this the philosophy that I would tend to take is basically we are like firefighters and we are putting out fires every day. So someday the fire might be that your bank balance is running out and you have to either leave get your employees kicked out of the company to survive, or you need to then go get that thing done, or the second day you're trying to sell your product to your a customer and you're trying to get that fire out so that you can get enough money. The third day you're trying to file taxes and trying to do compliances. The fourth day you're doing product development, and the fifth day you're trying to hire somebody. So there's there's a fire every hour in your company, and essentially what you're trying to do is you are trying to put those fires out so that you don't burn the same day down, and you will survive to tell a story the next day, right? So the question is, like, are you willing to do that on a day-to-day basis, and you have others to support you in doing that? So that's kind of mostly it. So that's the simplest analogy I would say you could give.
Okay, NP. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, NP, for that answer. I think we'll quickly move to Siddharth here. Siddharth, you can, I think, talk from a student's perspective as to how you personally see this, guys, especially given the fact that you are into, you're right now digging into space entrepreneurship and you're looking at that as a potential field itself. So how is it that these people inspire you, and how do you look at them?
First of all, I mean, I'm actually the odd one out here because all these people are entrepreneurs. I'm not. So I can all look it from outside. Like I can just look all you guys play it out and just observe it from outside. But yeah, I mean, I can understand from what you guys go through every day. It's not easy being an entrepreneur, but it's something which has become a lot of cliche nowadays. Everybody's calling themselves an entrepreneur. Everyone who has a small startup in their garage is calling themselves an entrepreneur. But I personally think from my perspective, I can only speak from my perspective because I have no experience of being an entrepreneur. So I'm a researcher and I'm into a lot of different fields. So what I see from my perspective is that I have noticed is, especially in India, what I've seen is that there has been a search and an understanding of how space works. Right. The only source of understanding in the previous times was like people used to get that information through their professors or their college or from their classmates. But now through the podcasts that you guys have been hosting, and I think you might be aware of the podcast that Lex Friedman hosts. I think he's a professor at MIT. So he also hosts a great podcast. I recommend it to all guys, that Lex Friedman's podcast. These people are actually bringing the mirror to the society, especially to the student community, and making them aware, what, there are not only these 10 fields that your professor has made you aware of, there are hundreds of domains that you can talk about. For example, in case of Nikita, she has this outreach program where she teaches students. Now, most people, when they imagine about space, they think about space entrepreneurship, they think about building satellites or rockets. But this thing does not come to their mind where you can actually go on and educate people. I mean, that's a great noble task in itself, and it's something which is highly in demand. But it's something which people don't conventionally think of. And what people like Rohan and Nikita and NP have done is like, and including all the podcast and all the media that we have been feeding through nowadays, it has done is like it has actually opened up avenues for the students to actually look into all different fields that now coexist together and experiment. The only thing that students nowadays need to do more is to actually experiment so that they could actually find their niche, and whenever once they find their niche they can actually move in that direction. So I mean, kudos to these people who have actually found their niche and they are doing great work in their domain. And Nitish, you too, kudos to you. I mean,
Oh
great
my
work
God.
with Unbounded. And NP, I mean, he is the Yoda in himself. So I wouldn't so much, but I mean, all of you guys are great inspiration. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Siddharth. I think you brilliantly, express the opinions of our student would look at these people here. So go to the Q&A session with which we'll end up the webinar itself. So first question up for NP. So it's kind of a funny question, but let me shoot it. So a viewer says, from what I understand, Sat Search is sort of like trying to create an Amazon for space.
Mm-hmm.
Your comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very simple as this. So you look at any industry out there, any established industry. Let's say airline industry. Airline industry began in the early 1900s with the aircrafts, and by the time commercial aircrafts became very successful, it happened only after World War II, when there were a lot of fighter pilots that were having no jobs, and eventually ended up being airline pilots. And then, initially all the parts came only from those countries. So a German aircraft company would only serve for Germany because aircrafts were like, national interest, because those were vehicles where you could use to like kind of as a military vehicle, right? And space is undergoing this transformation only now, and today you see, if you go to the outskirts of Bangalore, you will see tens of suppliers manufacturing parts for an Airbus aircraft or a Boeing aircraft. And that's taken 100 years of journey, going from the beginning of the aircraft to the supply chain kind of spreading across, where ultimately somebody in Bangalore is manufacturing a part for, a cabin of a helicopter that's flying in the US, right? So we see that, for space to become a successful industry, the supply chain should spread out so that there is more competition and more companies, like for example, Rohan's company, if he gets an order from, not locally, he may get an order from ISRO, for example, but how cool will it be if he gets an order from Lockheed Martin or, or from Boeing or somebody else, right? So the first step is to internationalize and globalize the supply chain, where, then, when you do that, then there's more competition between suppliers and trade becomes international. And because trade becomes international, costs kind of go down because there is no competition. So we started out with this mission that, we need to kind of help suppliers from all around the world to come on a single platform and, engineers to be able to source all of it at the same time. So that has led to us creating Sat Search, and we have about 1,600 suppliers now on our platform, and about 6,000 engineers use us every month at the moment. To source different stuff, for that satellites and so on. But so that's the trajectory that we are on, and this is a theory that we have, that this is how the industry will work, and we've seen some growth over 3-4 years time, but our theory, we need to be proven right or wrong in the coming years, and that's what we are here, and that's what we are hoping to do, that we are proven right rather than wrong.
Thank you so much, NP. I think what we have to understand here is that rocket science does not necessarily deal with the complex technologies and building propellants, building rocket engines like these guys have been doing. It is also You can also make a contribution when you look at the supply chain management side, the management side of it, as well as NP rightly pointed out. So I think you guys are doing an absolutely amazing job in terms of regulating all that, and it is a very genuine cause. So thank you so much for answering that, NP. So next question up, it is addressed for Rohan. Rohan, a friend of mine asked, so by the way, he's been doing a lot of research with hypersonics and stuff. So this is sort of like a techie question. So he asks, with the advent of growing hypersonics and all that sort of technology and space propulsion as well, how do you think both complement each other? If the question is clear, yeah.
Yeah, see, to see hypersonic flights serve passenger or commercial purpose, it will take a lot of time. And it's a good military technology as of now, but the developmental time period is, it's not so fast. It doesn't scale well. And I can't comment much on hypersonics at the moment, because I personally I'm a little skeptical so as to when I can see it coming into daily use. But of course, it can complement in a different way if you combine space propulsion. If you look at this company in the UK called as Skylon. So what they try to do is they want to collect, they just want to carry the hydrogen, the fuel component. They want to get into the atmosphere. They want to get into this hypersonic mode where they collect oxygen from the atmosphere. They collect it, and then it turns into a rocket, and then they go to space. So it's a good complement which you see. So of course, if more governments put more money into this research, into the field of hypersonics, re-entry, there's a good future in it.
Okay.
So it's not a direct answer to that question, because there are a lot. The question itself is very deep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think that should help Srivatsan if you're actually viewing the webinar here. So next question is for Nikita. So what are your future plans, and do you plan on bringing more astronauts live here?
My future plans is not only of bringing astronauts, it's about bringing as many people into space who are actually dreaming, and let them make their dreams come true. Yeah, that's about it. Not only about astronaut, it could be anyone who wants to become an entrepreneur, who wants to become a scientist, who wants to become, I get few students who ask about telling, I want to work on space food. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I mean, these are school students who say that I want to work on space food. Now, tell me more about astrobiology, chemistry, and space. What not? They have curious minds, and if they keep thinking, and if there's someone to help them, someone to guide them, like really big, who are actually into this profession, if we could help them, they will achieve. That's what we want. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much, Nikita. So I think following up on what Nikita said, I would like to take a moment here and talk about Nexus, which is another substitute of Unbounded, which that is a platform which we have developed. So that is like the ultimate contact sharing network, wherein we are trying to interconnect universities itself, wherein people can randomly one can say, hey, how about a drone internship somewhere, and the other person could who has done that elsewhere could potentially connect with that person. I think that's how you build a contact. It's not just for space, but it's for everything. So I think networking is the emphasis right there. So that is what we've been trying to do with Unbounded. So we'll link the description about the WhatsApp groups and everything which Nexus has, so you can look at it down below after the video. So if you're interested in genuinely contributing and giving back as well, as much as learning and networking from others, so please, Nexus always welcomes you. So that's about it. And Siddharth, so we planned this thing around a week ago. We said, okay, why not bring in people and have a nice talk and see how it goes. So let's end this talk here with your opinion. So what did you learn from everybody here? What is your future plans from a student's perspective? And how do you think these people are going to play a part in your life?
First of all, I mean, I can only look up to these people as someone who are like what we call as Rohan put it out perfectly, giving the example of Gemini astronauts. These are the first generation change makers in this country. I don't know if ever our parents were aware of the term entrepreneurship, which now we use so frequently these days. But seeing a lot of startups in Bangalore, some of them fail, some of them hit the mark, and few of them who actually impact. And few of them would actually impact, and few of them are actually sitting us with right now. So it's a great inspiration for all Indian student community right here. Uh, Listening to them, seeing them share their experiences, it has been an enlightening experience for me. Though I'm not an entrepreneur, I don't intend to be in the future because I think it's something which is best left for the professionals like this.
Mhm.
But I am a researcher at heart. I am someone who is more into the academic stuff. So definitely, but insights are always welcome. I definitely loved whatever they had to share. I mean, it's been a great enlightening and learning experience.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Azad. And before we end off, I would like to personally thank each and every one of you, NP, Rohan, Nikita, and Siddharth. See, it is not every day that people of your caliber would respond to a message and say, yes, we can do this. And, it shows how much you're genuinely willing to help students grow and help develop the new space sector, especially in this country. And thank you so much for being so supportive. So I think I have to say that as well, with respect to how we actually, held this webinar. So I think that's one of the best traits that you guys have, being
Thank
so
you,
humble.
Nitish. You've been very kind and humble.
Oh
It's
my God.
not
Okay.
us. Yeah. And
Oh,
so we're all learners.
okay.
Uh, there's
Absolutely.
much to do. And thank you for taking this brilliant initiative and looking forward to more from your side.
Thank you so much, Ron. I think we'll hit back with you on to do a lot more episodes as well on the upcoming topics. In fact, every single one of you, not just Rohan here. So thank you so much for taking out time wherever you are and amidst your busy schedule for doing this. Thank you, Siddharth, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
NP, Rohan, and Nikita. So before we finally end this, I would like to say, people, this is Unbounded. This is what we do. So we are trying to create and foster a student network, which is looking at space entrepreneurship as a potential site to explore in the future itself. So please follow and subscribe to the channel, and you also might want to have a look at Nexus and what we do there as well. So thank you so much, and let's all sign off and call it a day. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.